The streets of Alwalton, a small village in England, were damp with morning dew, and the mist rolled low across the cobblestones. A thin boy, no older than 10, carried a basket of newspapers under his arm. His clothes were patched, his shoes had holes in them, and his hands were already hardened with the labor of a grown man. His name was Henry Royce, a boy destined for greatness, though no one could have imagined it then. Henry was born into poverty. His father, a humble miller, tried to keep the family afloat, but sickness and misfortune visited their home like uninvited guests. When Henry's father died, the family was left with nothing but debts and despair. His mother, a gentle but weary woman, struggled to feed her children. Henry was forced to leave school at the age of 9 to earn whatever pennies he could. Every day was a battle for survival. He sold newspapers in the morning, delivered telegrams during the day, and worked late into the night fixing lamps in the streets. His fingers often bled from carrying heavy tools, but he never complained. "If I stop, we starve," he whispered to himself. Yet, behind his exhaustion, his eyes burned with a secret fire, a fascination with machines. Whenever Henry saw a carriage, a clock, or even a broken piece of iron, his mind began to turn with questions. How does it move? What makes it work? How can I make it better? Most boys of his age dreamed of food, comfort, or play, but Henry dreamed of gears, engines, and movement. At night, while the rest of the village slept, Henry sat in a corner of his cramped home with scraps of broken objects collected from the streets. Old bicycle chains, rusted bolts, broken watches, he took them apart piece by piece. He had no teacher, no books, no formal education. The machines themselves became his teachers. His small oil lamp flickered, casting long shadows on the wall, as the boy with blistered fingers taught himself the secrets of mechanics. Sometimes he failed, gears would break, clocks would never tick again, and neighbors would laugh at his experiments. "That boy's wasting his time with junk," they mocked. "He'll never be more than a poor laborer." But Henry didn't care. He wiped the sweat from his brow, tightened his grip on the tools, and tried again. Failure, to him, was not the end. It was simply a step closer to success. Hunger was his constant companion. There were days when he went to bed with nothing but a glass of water, his stomach growling in protest. On freezing winter nights, he wrapped himself in a thin blanket, whispering to himself, one day, I will build something great. One day, the world will know my work." By the age of 14, Henry's hands were as skilled as those of men twice his age. He found small jobs repairing farm tools and broken watches for villagers. People began to notice that, though he was poor, the boy had magic in his fingers. Everything he touched seemed to work better than before. But Henry's life was far from easy. His lack of education made him an outcast in many circles. Wealthy children mocked him. Employers exploited his desperation, paying him almost nothing for endless hours of labor. Yet, he never allowed bitterness to take root in his heart. Instead, he sharpened his patience and discipline. There was one moment that forever changed his perspective. One morning, as Henry was delivering telegrams, he saw a wealthy man's carriage stop in the middle of the street. The carriage had broken down, and the driver was helpless. The horses grew restless, the wheels jammed. Everyone stood around, shaking their heads. But Henry, skinny, ragged, and unimportant in the eyes of society, stepped forward. With nothing but his quick mind and nimble hands, he examined the broken wheel, adjusted the bolts. And within minutes, the carriage rolled smoothly again. The wealthy man looked at Henry in astonishment. "You're just a boy, how did you do that?" he asked. Henry simply smiled, shrugged, and replied softly, "Machines speak to me, sir. I just listen to what they need." That day, Henry realized his gift was not ordinary. It was extraordinary. Poverty had taken away his comfort, but it had given him something priceless: the hunger to learn, the courage to endure, and the determination to rise. At times, when life felt unbearable, Henry would stand alone under the stars, gazing at the night sky. The cold wind bit into his thin body, but in his heart, he felt warmth. One day, he whispered, his voice trembling but unshaken, "I will build a machine that the world will remember forever. And when they see it, they will know that even a poor boy can create something timeless." It was a silent vow, a vow carved deep into his soul. He did not yet know how, or when, or with whose help, but he believed. And that belief was enough to carry him forward, step by painful step. Years later, this same boy, who once sold newspapers for survival, would turn his passion into a masterpiece. But in those early days, no one saw a future genius. They only saw a barefoot child with grease on his face and hope in his eyes. What they didn't know was that Henry Royce's greatest wealth was not money, not privilege, but an unbreakable spirit. He was poor in pocket but rich in dreams. And those dreams were about to change the world. Years rolled by, and the boy who once tinkered with broken clocks had now become a man, Henry Royce, a self-made engineer. His beginnings were humble, but his hands never stopped working, and his mind never stopped dreaming. He had no degree, no wealthy family, no safety net. All he had was grit, discipline, and an obsession with perfection. At first, he worked as an apprentice, absorbing every detail of machinery like a sponge. Long after others had gone home, Henry stayed behind, running his fingers over gears, studying the way engines breathed, the way steel carried power. He lived for those moments when he could solve a problem that others had given up on. By his 20s, Henry had started a small electrical business. It wasn't glamorous. He built dynamos, cranes, and other machines. But each piece he crafted carried his signature trait, absolute precision. His motto was simple but powerful: whatever you do, do it the best way possible. That obsession with quality became his guiding star. However, Henry was never satisfied. He looked at the growing world of automobiles, noisy, unreliable, rough machines that constantly broke down, and thought, these can be better. They must be better. The idea took root in his mind like fire spreading through dry grass. In 1904, Henry Royce unveiled his very first car. It wasn't flashy, but it was quiet, smooth, and beautifully engineered. People who saw it were stunned. "This doesn't drive," one man said in awe, "it glides." For Henry, that was only the beginning. He didn't want to just build cars, he wanted to build the best cars in the world. But dreams need partners, and destiny had one waiting for him. That same year, Henry was introduced to Charles Rolls, a wealthy aristocrat and automobile dealer. Charles was everything Henry was not: well-dressed, well-educated, with a passion for adventure and flying. Yet beneath their differences, Charles saw something in Henry: genius. When Rolls first tested a Royce car, his eyes widened in disbelief. This is unlike anything I've driven before," he said. "It's smooth, silent, perfect." He turned to Henry and added with a smile, "Mr. Royce, together we could change the future of motoring." And so, Rolls-Royce was born. The partnership was not just about business, it was about vision. Rolls brought the wealth, the connections, and the dream of spreading these cars across the world. Royce brought the engineering magic, the relentless pursuit of perfection. Where others saw machines, Royce saw art. Where others were content with good enough, Royce demanded excellence. The duo introduced their first joint masterpiece, the Rolls-Royce 10 horsepower. It became the foundation of a legend. Then came the car that would seal their name into history, the Rolls-Royce Silver Ghost. It was not just a car. It was a statement. Whisper quiet, impossibly smooth, and built with unmatched precision, the Silver Ghost became known as the best car in the world. Kings, queens, maharajas, and wealthy industrialists flocked to own one. To ride in a Rolls-Royce was not just transportation, it was a symbol of power, elegance, and untouchable prestige. The once poor boy who had mended broken watches was now building machines for royalty. But behind the shining emblem and polished wood interiors, Henry's philosophy never changed. He was never satisfied with almost perfect. He would spend endless hours making tiny adjustments, testing every bolt, every wheel, every gear. If something was wrong, he would fix it until it was flawless. His engineers whispered in both admiration and frustration, "Mr. Royce doesn't let a single imperfection lie." Charles Rolls admired Henry deeply, but he was also a dreamer in a different way. Fascinated by aviation, Rolls pursued his passion for flying. Tragically, in 1910, Charles Rolls died in a plane crash at the young age of 32. The world mourned, and Henry felt the loss of his partner like a deep wound. Yet, he continued. The company carried on under his vision, and the name Rolls-Royce remained immortal. As the years went by, Rolls-Royce expanded beyond luxury cars. They became pioneers in aviation engines, building the power behind planes that would eventually help win wars and push the boundaries of flight. The same obsession with perfection that had created the world's finest cars now fueled engines that touched the skies. Henry Royce himself, despite ill health in later years, continued to sketch designs and oversee production from his bed. His passion never dimmed. He often said, "Take the best that exists and make it better. If it doesn't exist, create it." Those words became the heartbeat of Rolls-Royce, guiding engineers long after his death. Looking back, it is almost impossible to imagine the journey. A boy who had once gone hungry, who had patched his own shoes, who had been mocked as a dreamer with dirty hands, this same boy built a brand that became synonymous with royalty, luxury, and perfection. Today, when the world sees a Rolls-Royce gliding silently down a road, they see elegance. But hidden behind that elegance is the story of Henry Royce, the poor boy who refused to give up. His story is not just about cars. It is about persistence. It is about the belief that circumstances do not define destiny. It is about proving that no dream is too big, and no starting point is too small. Henry Royce once whispered into the cold night, "One day, the world will know my work." And indeed, the world does. The Rolls-Royce emblem, the spirit of ecstasy, shining proudly on every car, is not just a symbol of luxury, it is a reminder of a man's unshakable will. From the narrow streets of poverty to the grand halls of kings, from broken clocks to engines of royalty, Henry Royce's journey remains one of the most powerful stories of resilience and achievement. And so, the boy who had nothing created something timeless. Rolls-Royce was not just a car. It was a dream, built on courage, sacrifice, and the unyielding pursuit of perfection.